Today we're talking about systems, and more specifically how to make selling info feel easy again and finally get your income consistent using systems built on psychology. And I may have the best one you'll come across in 2026. Now, I know this works because it's the same system behind over $100 million in sales for me and my clients, and me walking away in 4 years, and it's the same system that I now teach the salespeople that I coach. But it wasn't always like this. Back when I first got into sales, I did exactly what everyone told me to do, which was to just learn the script, hammer the objections, follow the framework on every single call. But I capped out really fast because I was always chasing the next tactic while my results stayed stuck. What I needed was something that didn't expire every few weeks, and so I built it around the one thing that never actually changes, which is how people decide to buy. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through all 5 parts of that system, exactly how each one works, and at the end, which part you need to fix first if you want to finally make closing feel easy. Now, before we get into the 5 parts, I want to make sure we're on the same page about what's actually happening inside your prospect's brain on a call. Because when most closers think about closing, their mind goes straight to the pitch or the objections or even the price drop. And that is just the surface layer. And almost every rep lives their entire career right there. But there is a second layer underneath it, and that's where every single buying decision actually gets made. And that is identity, emotion, and trust. Because your prospect feels the decision long before they ever justify it with logic. So if you are stacking more proof and more reasons on somebody who just keeps telling you that they need to think about it, the logic was never the problem. You were just speaking to the wrong layer the whole time. And the best example of what I mean is McDonald's. You see, McDonald's started as a single restaurant run by 2 brothers, and it worked decently, but it only worked because they were in that one kitchen every day making it run. Then one day, a guy named Ray Kroc came along and saw what the real opportunity actually was. He took everything that made that one location work and he turned it into a repeatable process that any kitchen could follow. Then he refused to let a new restaurant open until it ran exactly like the original. That's the only reason that there are around 40,000 McDonald's operating the same exact way across the world today. So that means the food was never the thing that actually scaled, but it was the system behind every kitchen. And closing works the same way. If every deal depends on you walking in a high emotional state, feeling hot, feeling energized, saying the right thing in the moment, then your income lives and dies on whether you are feeling switched on that day or not. But once you build psychology into a system underneath all of your calls, the part that used to depend on your mood now just starts running with or without you. And there's a reason that this is harder now than it ever used to be. Now, I actually made a whole other video breaking down the amygdala and how it works, so I'm not going to run through all of that again here. But what I want to do instead is take you one layer deeper into the part that actually changes how you close starting today. Because there is an older, faster part of your prospect's brain whose entire job is to keep them safe. And it makes a judgment about you almost instantly, long before the thinking part of them has caught up. And so by the time they've formed a single conscious thought about you or your offer, that part has already decided whether you are safe or whether you're a threat. But the thing is that once it tags you as a threat, you've already lost the deal, even if they're sitting there nodding along, saying yes every step of the way, because the moment that happens, the logical side of their brain goes completely quiet. They're not weighing the pros and cons of your pitch anymore. They've actually braced themselves against you, and every smart thing that you say after that just slides right off like a water slide. You can be completely right. You can have the best offer on the table, and none of it will get through the filter of their brain because the part of them that's sizing you up right now is not the part that weighs the pros and cons of offers. The safety check isn't judging your offer at all. More specifically, it's reading your pace, your energy, whether you seem like you need this close more than they need the help. What it's really looking for are the patterns that burned them before, like a closer who on a previous call pushed them too hard, or faked urgency, or a rep who obviously cared more about his commission than the person on the other end of the call. And a few years ago, a prospect had nothing to brace against when they got on a call, and so they've really just bought without much resistance. But your prospect now in 2026 has been through all of that since then. They've heard the scripted lines, they've seen the fake screenshots, they've watched their friends get burned, and that safety check learned exactly what to watch for. So now it's already working before you've said anything that is worth hearing or not. And so they get on the call, they hear your first few words, and that read is already locked in before you ever reach your script. So the whole game is getting past that first read, reaching the part of them that actually buys, and moving people from there. And that's exactly what these 5 parts are built to do. So let's start with the first one, the threat gate. Now, before you close anybody, before your pitch or your price even matters, you have to get through that safety check without setting it off. Because the moment that you set it off, the call is already over. They just haven't told you yet. And most closers trip that wire without even realizing it. When a rep comes in too hard or too eager or obviously hungry for the close, the prospect's guard just goes straight up in the first few seconds, and every smart thing that is said after that just bounces right off. So this really comes down to how you carry yourself before you ever get to the pitch. And it starts with your pacing. You see, a rep who rushes, who talks quickly, who pushes forward towards the close, reads as a threat, while slowing down and leaving a little bit of space is what tells a prospect that they are safe. From there, it's about dropping the pressure tactics, the kind of fake scarcity where there's suddenly only 2 spots left, or, why do you want to do this now? Or, the price goes up after, 2 days after this call. A sharp prospect has been on enough sales calls to see all of it coming, and that's exactly what their guard is watching for. And so the second that they catch one of those tactics being used, what do you think happens? Their wall just completely goes up after that. It also helps to hand them an out. When you tell somebody that this might not even be a fit for them, the threat drops faster than anything else that you could say, because it means that you're not here to corner them. Now, the last piece is your proof. Here, social proof can build trust, but only when it feels human. Because if your results are dressed up the same slick way as the last guy who burned them, you will get filed under the exact same threat, and they will shut down before you ever finish the point. Now, none of this costs you anything but awareness. And it decides whether a prospect stays open or spends the rest of the call just nodding but thinking about how they can get out of that. Now, once you're through the gate, the second part is where the real closing happens. This is what we call the decision layer. The decision to buy and the explanation for buying come from 2 completely different places in the mind. Now, the explanation is the easy part. It's the budget, the timing, needing to ask their partner. It's what your prospect actually says out loud, but the decision itself gets made somewhere much deeper before any of those words show up. It's a feeling first. It's a sense of yes or no that lands before they could ever even tell you why. And the reasons only come afterward in order to back up something that they already felt. So if you spend the whole call feeding the explanation side with more features and more proof, you're just arguing with a part of them that was never going to make the call in the first place, which is why closing at the decision layer looks much different. Instead of leading with your offer, you lead with their situation. So the first move on any call is showing them that you understand where they are right now, sometimes better than they could even put it themselves. Because when somebody feels understood, something in them leans towards you. And when they feel handled, it leans the complete other way. Now, from there, you speak to who they become, not just what they get. And that's because people rarely buy the outcome on its own. They buy the version of themselves and the feelings and the aspirations and the identity that comes with it. The kind of person who closes without flinching, who finally has consistent income, who feels like they are the one in control of their results, that's where the money actually moves. And the trust you're after works the same exact way. It builds through how you carry yourself, not just telling them how trustworthy you are, but think about it this way. When you try to earn it out loud, you've turned it into the goal, and people feel that the moment that you try and do it. See, I worked with a closer named Joe, who came to me making, at the time, his max was about $7,000 a month. And we rebuilt how he ran his calls around the part of people that actually makes the decision, and his results climbed so fast from there. He stopped arguing with a part of the brain that was never going to decide anyway, and the numbers followed. He made 80 grand last month. And that's what this layer does once you stop fighting it, and it runs right into the next part, because when you're talking to the part of the brain that actually decides, the question becomes, how do you change what somebody already believes? And that's what loosen before inserting is for. Now this one took me a long time to understand, and it's what separates the closers who can actually move a belief from the ones who just end up arguing with their prospects, because you cannot put a new belief into someone while they are still gripping the old one. So think about somebody holding something tightly in a closed fist. You can try to force a new idea into that hand all day and it will just fall straight back out because their mind is already closed around what they believe. And the harder that you push, the tighter they hold on. So instead of trying to convince them, just loosen their grip on what they're already holding first. And you do that by getting them to actually look at what they're already holding, because most people carry their beliefs around without ever stopping to examine them. So you bring the belief up gently and you get them a little curious about it. Since curiosity is what makes the hand open on its own, once it's open, they're already turning that old belief over themselves, questioning it. And that's the moment to help them set it down, choose a new one, pick it up, and put it in and close their hand around it. So let's say your prospect walks onto the call believing that every program like yours is a scam because they got burned before. Now, if you sell against that belief head on, you lose. So instead, you say it for them. You talk about how much garbage is out there, how you'd be skeptical too, how a lot of these programs really are built to take your money and run. Now the grip is loosened a bit because you just agreed with the very thing that they were bracing to defend. This is what we call the spotlight effect in psychology. And once you use it, that's when you can gently replace it by showing them that the real danger was never getting help. It was just getting the wrong help. So instead of arguing with a belief, you just open their hand and put something better in it. This same move works on every objection that's really a belief in disguise, on the price, on the timing, on whether this even works for somebody like them. You just find the belief that's sitting between them and the purchase, you loosen it, and then you bring in the new one. But there's a catch, because not everybody responds to this the same way, and that's what brings us to the fourth part, with the grain or against it. Now, this is how you figure out which approach to use on which prospect, and getting it wrong is the reason a great pitch can fall completely flat on the right buyer. Because people really do split into two different types. Some of them go with the grain. They look to other people for proof. They want to know what's already working and who else is doing it. And they won't make a move until they've seen it work for somebody just like them. But others go against the grain entirely. They don't care what everyone else is doing. They want to be the one who does the opposite. And the second that you tell them that everybody is going one way, they instinctively want to go the other direction. So you have to close these two types of people completely differently. With the grain person, you lead with social proof and case studies, the safe and proven path. Start small and scale up over time. You tell them how many people already in your world have figured this out and that they can stop trying to crack it alone. And you make saying yes the obvious next move, and you make it feel small and safe and easy. But with an against the grain person, that exact pitch is what pushes them away. So you instead, with this person, lead with identity and rebellion. You ask if they're going to keep doing what everyone else does and stay stuck, or step up and become the person that actually breaks away from the pack. You are making them the exception instead of part of the crowd. And you can usually tell which one you're dealing with inside the first couple of seconds, if not couple of minutes, just from how they talk about what other people are doing and what they're doing. And once you can read that, you stop forcing one approach on everybody and start shaping it around how the person in front of you is actually wired. And the same thing holds true whether it's the opening, whether it's the pitch, or the objections, because the offer never changes, only the framing moves depending on who's in front of you. And when the framing finally fits the person, they're leaning in, and the last part is what keeps them there and carries them to the close. This is the open loop. It's how you hold attention so the conversation doesn't just fizzle out. And it's the part that most closers leave completely on the table. Now, the human mind hates an unfinished story. And so an open question just sits there and nags until it gets answered, which means your prospect keeps paying attention for the simple reason that they need the resolution. That's the entire reason that you've stayed with me this far into the video, by the way. I told you right at the start, I tell you which part to fix first, and your mind has probably been holding that open loop ever since. And so you can use that same pull on purpose. You never leave a call without the next step already booked, but leaving an open loop, leaving a sense of curiosity, right? You book the next move from the call itself every single time. Lots of people understand this as BAM fam, but they never leave any curiosity with it. BAM fam means book a meeting from a meeting, if you didn't know. But because the moment that the next step is on the calendar and there's some curiosity attached to it, like what's actually going to happen next? There's a question I don't quite yet have answered. There's a bigger and better thing that's coming, if you will. When there's an open loop in their mind, it quietly holds them to you while they're out talking to other people. Other vendors, other companies, even perhaps another closer. You've probably had a prospect tell you that they want to shop around first. Now, if they were already a next step booked with you, that pull doesn't have the same grip because the open loop keeps them pointed at you instead of drifting somewhere else. So you can build the loops in on purpose and you decide when and how they close. Now, I've been getting a lot of messages asking me to go deeper on all of this and actually walk through how I install each of these. So I put together a community where I break this stuff down in a lot more detail than I can fit into just simply one video. And where I'm in there answering questions every single day directly with actual Loom responses, well thought through responses, not just, great work. So it's called the Sales Dojo, and it's everything that I spent over $1 million in years of my life learning, simplified and ready to use. So if you want access to it, I'll leave a link down in the description below to check it out. But now that you've got all 5 parts, the question is which one you fix first if you actually want closing to feel easy. And the answer is almost never the one that people reach for. Because when most closers hit a wall, they go and add more. They add in more proof or a better objection rebuttal or a new objection framework, all on the assumption that they just haven't convinced people hard enough yet. And that's almost always the wrong move, because if you're setting off that safety check, none of it lands. The logical side of your prospect is already shut down. It's turned off completely. So piling on more proof and more pressure only sets it off more, and you bury yourself deeper while you are so completely sure that you're doing the right thing. So before you touch anything else, you fix the gate. You go back and you look honestly at how you show up in those first few seconds. The pace, the pressure, the desperation. Prospects can feel all of that even through a screen. And if people are bracing against you before you ever even get going, the other 4 parts have nothing to work with. So once the gate is clean and the people feel safe, you move to the decision layer, then to shifting their beliefs, then to matching how they're wired, and then holding them with open loops. One at a time, in that order. That's how the closers who finally get their income consistent, like Joe going from 7 to 80K a month in a year, actually do it. They stop trying to fix everything at once and they stop chasing the next shiny tactic. They find the part of their process that's most broken, they patch it up, they let it stabilize, and then they go and they find the next hole. And every time that you close one of those gaps, closing becomes exponentially easier because you're finally working with human psychology rather than against it. Now, these 5 parts only work as well as you understand the psychology underneath them. That deeper layer is what lets you flex all 5 to fit whoever's in front of you and not run them like a script that somebody can absolutely feel. So watch this video right here on the screen next, where I break down the ethical dark psychology that multiplies all of these principles.